Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Jamie and this is Texas Girl DIYs. Today's video is a compilation of some of your favorite and my favorite DIYs of 2020. But before we get into any of that, first I want to tell you thank you so much for sticking with me while I have been MIA the past few weeks. I've been working out on my other channel, At Home with Texas Girl. Over there, I am doing some vlogs, some cooking, baking. All my hauls are going to be over there. And just recently, I finished a Vlogmas series, which was so much fun. My family and I had created some new memories and some new traditions, so it was a lot of fun over there. And so thank you for sticking with me. And if you are interested in any of that, I encourage you to hop on over once this video is over and join my channel. Hit subscribe, hit like, hit dislike, whatever you want. Either way, it helps my channel grow, and I love and appreciate each and every one of you over here and over there. So with all that being said, let's jump into these favorite DIYs of 2020. Starting with my absolute favorite DIY of 2020, the Farmhouse console table. For this project, I start with some 2x4s. I cut them down to size. Now, I don't remember the exact measurements, but the description for that will be in the original video that I'm going to link down in the description box down below. So once I got them cut, I just gave everything a good sanding because you want to definitely sand all your wood projects. And then I start off with nailing the legs together, and I start with doing the legs, and I fought with my nail gun for like the longest time, and then I realized that my nail gun only shoots 2-inch nails and I needed something longer. So eventually you're going to see me struggling hammering out some nails. I still need to invest in a better nail gun, but this is what I had to do. So I realized that I did not have my legs straight, so this is something that my husband had to help me out with later on. Yes, just a hammer and some 3-inch nails, and I was able to get this baby put together. Now, I'd say this is my absolute favorite project that I've ever done is because it is the first wood project I've ever done, and I'm so proud of it because it turned out so well, and a lot of you really loved it too. And I still have it in my my entryway to this day. I love decorating it for all the different seasons, and a lot of sweat and hard work and of 3 days went into this project. Here I am working on the tabletop, and so I'm just using the saw to cut my pieces, and I was super excited that I cut a straight line. So I go ahead and get all my wood pieces cut for the tabletop, and then later I go in and cut my pieces for the shelf down below. So now, because these pieces of wood are thinner, I was able to get everything all lined up and use my nail gun to nail everything in place. Now comes the fun part. I used the Kills white chalk paint, and I just did one, I believe I just did one, maybe I did 2 coats over this entire thing. Well, not the entire thing, just the legs and it's the frame. Now using my favorite wood stain, red oak, I do 1 coat over the shelf and the tabletop. That sit overnight. I'm using my favorite polyacrylic, and I think I did 2 coats on the tabletop and the shelf. how it turned out. I absolutely love this. Coming in at number 19, my trash to treasure Armoire. My husband and I found this armoire at an antique store, and we got this for such a great deal. We found this for $50. Now, there was some loving that needed to be done here. There was some scratches and dings, and the hardware was all messed up. It was gross and disgusting. No worries. Just going to clean it up. And the first thing, my husband was trying to show me how to sandblast. And let me tell you, this was no fun. It hurts. Like, as you can see, I'm like trying to cover my face and it is terrible. Like the sand is like, it's taking the finish off. That is what the main purpose of this is to take the finish off, because sanding was not actually working. So I was just trying to get the trim and I couldn't handle it anymore. I had to pass the torch off to my husband, and he was able to get all the little nooks and crannies just around the edges where a sander could not get. So sanding this was really not that necessary, except for the parts where it was severely scratched. And that was the main parts that I focused on with my palm sander. And it took out the scratches really well. Went in with some cred cutter and I wiped everything down. Now, as you can see, this came apart in two pieces, and my husband thought that this would be a lot easier for me to work with and paint, in which case I went in with my Rust-Oleum chalk paint in Chiffon Cream. I love this color. This became my new favorite color to work with, and it was just so, it turned out so beautiful. And all of this still did take 2 coats to get the full coverage that I was looking for. Again, with that same polyacrylic sealer that I like so much, before I really start getting into putting my coats on there, I realized that I needed to give this a good sanding. Just a light sanding so I can distress it in certain places just to make it a little bit more old looking and get the kind of the look I'm going for. And then once I have it all sanded just the way I want it, then I go back in with the polyacrylic and seal it all in. I had to do really is add some new hardware to the drawers and everything, but this is still one of my husband's favorite pieces, and please excuse the mess in the background. This washboard DIY was definitely one of the DIYs that I had done earlier in the year that really helped my channel out. So I started off with one of the signs from Dollar Tree during their 4th of July collection. And I'm using just some pieces of that, what they call basswood. Is it basswood? I don't know. From Hobby Lobby. And I'm just going to measure and cut some pieces out. I cannot remember measurements. Again, I will leave the link to the original video down in the description box, as everything else, and you can get the measurements from there. Now, this part right here where I'm cutting the tails off, don't do that part. I realized very quickly that I needed a lip to actually connect my wood pieces on, and I kind of messed up with doing that. But anyway, for the most part, this turned out really great. also one of the videos where I realized that you have to be careful on how you use wood glue and hot glue together, because mixing them doesn't actually work very well. It doesn't stick. But I think if you do it in like spots where they kind of somehow work together, I guess it works. But mixing them like I was trying to do in this video wasn't working. So I just ended up having to secure everything with hot glue all by itself. Here I am measuring and cutting the pieces that I need to make a shelf for my little washboard. So now just going in with some antique wax, I just do one coat over this entire washboard. And then I do use some painter's tape to tape off the galvanized part, and that way I can get inside the little edges there. And you will see that I am sorry that I did not realize that I was not recording, even in the original video, that when I went to paint the letters on Laundry Company on the top and the little flower that is on the shelf, my camera was not recording, so it missed that part. I do apologize for that, but you'll see here in the end in a second. I really do love how this turned out, and I still have it hanging on my wall to this day. Love it very much. And as somebody had pointed out to me in the original video that they thought I had spelled laundry wrong. That is an N, not an R, Laundry. Unless I even spelled that wrong, but I'm pretty sure I looked up how to spell laundry. That is an N, not an R. So anyway, I just feel like I had to, disclaimer there. A lot of you had said that you liked the dairy bottles better than the flowers, so I kept the dairy bottles. This is a Hobby Lobby dupe, and this is one of my daughter's favorite DIYs that I had done. And I started off with one of the shadow boxes from Dollar Tree, just basically taking everything apart. And I took that glass and I set it to the side because I was no longer going to need it. So then I put the back in and then put the shadow box frame part back together. Next, I go ahead and gave this 2 coats of white chalk paint. And take some of these wood beads that I had gotten from Hobby Lobby, and I only used a few. I start off using this jute twine from Dollar Tree, but when I went to slide my bead onto the jute, it was fraying, so it wasn't working out. So I ended up having to use a thinner piece of twine, and I strung some beads together, and I tied both ends in a knot. I'm just taking these Jenga blocks and some super glue gel from Dollar Tree, and I'm going to glue these together, 2 rows of, I don't know, 6 maybe, I can't really remember, but anyway, so I'm gluing these all together, and once you get these all glued together, you want to let the glue sit for about 10 minutes. Once that is dry, you'll see that I'll go in with some Waverly Antique wax and maybe a little bit water. I think I used the water, and I created a nice little stain. So then I go in with a little bit darker stain, and I also go over the edge of the shadow box. printed out PS I love you on some regular old printer paper, and then I'm just going to cut the paper down to size, and then I'm going to use the old transfer method with, pencil, and then rubbing it on and then tracing again onto the project. Once I had my words transferred, then I went in with a fine tip Sharpie marker and I went over my letters again. And I can't remember what color I'm using. I think I didn't have black, and so this is like actually a really dark blue, but it turned out really nice in the end. So next I'm just going to take my string of wood beads and I'm going to attach it to the shadow box with some hot glue. After that, I just go in with some scissors and I trim off the excess. And then I'm going to take some jute twine and I'm going to wrap it around my fingers. And actually, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm actually going to take some nautical rope first, and I'm going around the edge of my shadow box. That is what I'm doing. So I'm just going to frame that with the nautical rope, and then you will see me go in with the jute twine, wrap it around my fingers to make bows, and I'm going to attach it to the shadow box to make it look like it's jute that is stringing the beads together. My daughter actually still keeps this one in her room. I love it. This is how it turned out. For the Moss Bunny project, my daughter gave me one of her canvases that she no longer wanted, and so I'm just removing the staples and then picking the canvas off of it. You have seen this done before. And then I'm just going to trim off the extra canvas, and then I'm going to hot glue it back onto the frame. Now I love these frames from, I think this actually came from like Michael's or something, and I love the extra detail that it has in it. After I had hot glued the four corners of my canvas to the backing, I'm going to go in with my staple gun and I'm going to just secure this in place. So then I'm going in with the Waverly Ivory chalk paint and I do one coat on the canvas. Printed out this cute little bunny template and just trimming it down, and then I'm going to actually cut around it even more, and then I'm going to put it on top of my canvas and I'm just tracing around it with my pencil. And then you're going to see me use some hot glue and some Dollar Tree moss. And this is kind of a messy project, I'm not going to lie, but this was a lot of fun though. So just kind of worked in small sections, just putting a bunch of hot glue and then just dumping the moss on top of it, trying to pile it up and add more hot glue and more moss. And then once you get all of the moss where you think you need it, you may need to have to add a little extra, but then you can trim it down with your scissors to make it look more like a bunny or whatever it is that you're trying to make it look like. So it Definitely is messy. It's a little bit of work, but it turns out so cute in the end. The last thing I do is just take some raffia and then just tie it into a little bow and then hot glue it to the bunny's neck in this project. This project is very similar to the last, removing the staples I used my butter knife and then I used some pliers to get the staples out, removing the canvas, cutting it down, and then attaching it back to the frame. Same as before. And I really love this project because it is so simple and so cute. Now for the frame, I just go ahead and I painted that in some antique wax, and I only did one coat. Same ivory chalk paint as before, I'm just doing one coat on top of the canvas. After everything has dried so quickly because I am so patient, I then go ahead and attach my canvas to the frame. Then using the stencil that I had gotten off of Amazon, which is a cow, a pig, and a chicken, I just place my stencil where I want it, and then I use the black chalk paint, and then I stencil that on top of the canvas. What I forgot to record, even in the original video, I had attached some jute twine onto my frame using some hot glue. I added 3 beads on either side, and then I added a nice little bow right there in the center. This next favorite DIY is a trash to treasure. I had picked this up from Goodwill. I think it was $2.99. First thing I did was just spray it down with some Cred Cutter, and I gave it a good cleaning. What I really should have done was sand it first and then clean it, but no, whatever. There were these sticker decals, the red bows that you can see with the greenery. I think those were like little sticker decals. So I just go in with a sanding sponge and some elbow grease, and I was able to eventually get those off. Now going in with some Waverly White chalk paint, I did 3 coats on top of that red because it kept bleeding through. But the rest of it, I was able to just do 2 coats. And I even did flip it over to the other side because it was pretty dirty looking and I wanted to give it a nice finished look. And I did 1 or 2 coats on the flip side. Then using this stencil that I had gotten off of Amazon and some black chalk paint, I just went ahead and stenciled everything on here. Of course, to seal the deal, just some good old polyacrylic to finish it off, and there you go. This next one was everybody's favorite when I did a Christmas in July, which I am very excited to do again in 2021. So I took this Easter sign and I decided to cut the little bunny off the top of the hat using my box cutter and just scoring around the side there and then just carefully removing the bunny. Then I just did one coat of this black acrylic paint. While that was drying, I just took this 8x10 picture frame from Dollar Tree, removed the backing and the glass, and then I went ahead and I gave this, I think I gave this 2 coats of white chocolate. I used this red and black buffalo ribbon from Hobby Lobby, and I just go ahead and I cut a strip off to go around the top part of the hat. After I attach my ribbon on to the hat with some hot glue, I go ahead and take that same ribbon and I create a nice little bow, and then I also hot glue that onto also use these beautiful picks that I had gotten over at Walmart, I think it was. I just trimmed the little stem down and then hot glued it onto the center of my bow. And then the other pick is going to be saved for the frame. So then for the frame, I just use some antique wax and I do a little bit of dry brushing just to give it more of an aged look. So here I am just inserting some scrapbook paper I picked up over at Hobby Lobby into my picture frame, and it's got the musical notes looking so cute. And then I'm going to use these Jenga blocks, alternating between hot glue and super glue and attaching it to the glass. Because I want to put my hat on top of here, but it needs something a little higher to sit on. So then I just use a little bit more of the hot glue and super glue on top of the Jenga blocks, and then I place my hat on top. Going in with that other pick that I had, I just attached that to the corner of the frame with some hot glue. I do add a little jingle bell that I was not able to record, and this is how it turned out. I was so glad that y'all love this one just as much as I did. Now this one was one of my absolute favorite fall decor pieces. I had gotten this Hello Fall sign from Hobby Lobby, and then I just painted one coat of elephant gray chalk paint on top of this. Then I take some foam core board and an old pizza pan, please don't judge, and I take my pencil and I just trace it around onto the foam board, and it's just because it's the size that I really like. And then I just carefully cut that circle out using a box cutter. And then once I was done, I went ahead and made some shiplap lines. Oh, my cat is always in the way. So using that same elephant chalk paint, I'm just going to go over those same lines that I had just made. And I'm just going to go do that all down the line. And then I'm doing some dry brushing with some white chalk paint, just trying to soften that up a little bit more. Really playing around with the paint because I don't want it to be too dark and I don't want it to be too light. You really just have to play around with it. And I'm using some antique wax and some white chalk paint, and I'm just doing some dry brushing with that as well. Once that was done and it was good and dry, I just go ahead and hot glue my Hello Fall sign down to my foam board. So then I'm just making a cutesy little bow with some Dollar Tree ribbon that I had, securing that with some jute twine. Now hot gluing the greenery that I had on hand. I'm just using some hot glue and just placing it where I see fit. And then I have these like off-white mums that I had that I thought were just so beautiful. And then I do have some extra uh, eucalyptus greenery that I had. And then I do attach my bow with some hot glue. And then I put a cute little pumpkin right there in the center. I'm just attaching some nautical rope so that I can hang it on my wall, and then this project was done. I absolutely love this one. This project you all might remember because I had just gotten my chop saw and I was super excited to use it for the first time. So here I'm making my hot chocolate crepe. And I thought this would be such a cute gift idea. Now, I can't quite remember the measurements. Again, original video will be in the description box. So I'm just cutting my wood pieces, and then I'm just going to attach these 4 pieces using some wood glue and my nail gun. Once that was all done, I just went in with these painter sticks and I ended up just lining these up, and I wanted to make sure that I had a little bit of a space in between. So using some wood glue and a staple gun, I just attached these, making the bottom of my crate. Then I took some more wood glue and some staples, and I wanted to make sure that this was able to sit up without being so wobbly. So I add a piece in the middle and then pieces on either side, and this made it a very sturdy crate. So then I just go in with some Kills chalk paint, and I gave this one coat all over, all the sides, bottom, top. So now I'm going in with some black chalk paint. I did mix in a little bit of white chalk paint in with it because I didn't want it to be so harsh. And then I just took my chippy brush and then I ended up just painting over top of my crate. And as you all might remember that I didn't have to dip my brush back into the paint. There was so much paint on the brush that I was able to just keep on going, and then it created this dry brush look that I was really looking for, in which case then the first side that I started out with ended up being too dark, and I had to do the whole thing, not the whole thing, just that one side all over again to get the look that I was going for. Then I printed out the words hot chocolate, and then I'm going to go back and do that same old school technique of transferring, only this time I'm using chalk instead of pencil, and that is because you are transferring it onto a darker surface, so you want to use chalk, and that'll help you get your words on there. And then I just use my embossing tool just to kind of trace over my letters, and then that transfers the image onto your project. Once that step was complete, I go in with my white chalk paint marker and I went over top of my letters, and that basically completed this project. For this next DIY, I just grabbed one of the wood rounds that you can get over at your local hardware store. Now, this is the larger one. They do have a smaller one that's a little bit cheaper. I think this one came in around maybe $11 or $12. So I'm just using my favorite red oak stain and I stain the entire thing. Now there is a little bit of a rough edge on this, so I do hit that with some sandpaper. And I really should have done it before I did the staining, but even sanding after I did the staining, no worries. It does go away when you apply your polyacrylic. So the next thing I do is I'm just taking my painter's tape and I'm marking where I'm going to be painting. So now with some white chalk paint, I'm just painting that inside piece, and I think I just did, may have done one coat or maybe two. Might have only been one. I honestly just don't remember. It could have been two. Let's go with two. So then I went to clipground.com and I printed out this free printable, and this was perfect. I printed out a W because my last name starts with a W, and I got some transfer paper. Now this is another transfer method if you don't have a Cricut or a silhouette. So I just put my transfer paper down where I wanted my image to go, placed my image on top, and then I just traced along the lines. And then once you were all done, then you can go back in with paint or whatever it is that you plan on filling in your lines with. Now for my last name, I did freehand that on my own. That was not part of the printable. I'm sure you can already see that, but I just wanted to show you that you can practice some of your prettiest handwriting. Not everybody, is born with the best handwriting. It's okay. I know I'm not born, I know I do not have the best handwriting, but if you practice it, like Heidi always tells us, keep practicing, you will get there. Now going in with my black Sharpie paint marker, just filling it in. Now to seal in all that glory with some polyacrylic sealer. The last thing I did was attach these two hardware pieces that I had gotten over at Lowe's. I think they're about $2 a piece, and I ended up just E6000 with it and called it good. I really do love how this turned out. Now for this Halloween wreath, apparently I need my cat beside me. But I picked up this wreath form. I believe it was over at Hobby Lobby. I think I got it for like $5. And then I had found these Walmart picks. These were so beautiful. And so I'm just kind of shoving everything where I think that they should go. That's what's wonderful about these, like, I think they're called grapevine wreaths. Am I wrong? I think that's what they're called. You just kind of like shove them in, and they really don't need hot glue. Although later on I do go in with a little bit of hot glue in certain areas because I was worried about the pick slipping out. But for the most part, you can just shove it into places and they pretty much stay in place. And y'all remember this infamous Halloween truck sign that everybody was after? Had to use that on this wreath. So as you see here, I am just kind of hot gluing certain places here and there, just a little bit of hot glue, and then I'm just taking my sign and I'm just kind of sticking it where I think it's going to go. And then when I figure that out, I'm going to attach this with some jute. Now I'm just going to flip this over first, and I'm going to hot glue the jute right on the sign where it should go. And then I'm going to add a little bit of extra hot glue to secure that. And then I'm going to put it on the wreath, and then I can tie it on the wreath with the jute. That way the sign isn't actually hot glued to the wreath. If I really wanted to, I can take this wreath apart and it's not going to damage it or anything. But I'm more than likely not going to take this wreath apart because I ended up loving this wreath. I love the way it turned out, so I'll probably use it for the next Halloween. So just trimming off the excess, and then I'm taking this gorgeous ribbon that I had found. I think I found it over at Michael's, and I'm just creating this beautiful little bow, just fluffing it out. You can see like the full tutorial in the original video, but just making a little bow, and I do add some tails here in a little bit that you won't end up seeing. And I also take some extra ribbon and I kind of cover that jute that is tying it all together, kind of covering it, making it look a little nicer. And I do add tails. Did I mention that already? Then I'm going to take some jute twine, hot glue it to the bow, and then tie that around the wreath, just like I did with the sign, if that makes any sense. Now this next DIY was a personal favorite of mine because it is cute and little and it is just so easy to put together. So I just took this tiny little frame from Dollar Tree, and my husband's giving a thumbs up. He wants everybody to give this video a thumbs up. So I painted the picture frame in white, and then I'm just removing a couple of those little tabs in there because I don't need them. They're just going to get in my way. And I'm taking some popsicle sticks, and I'm just kind of measuring, eyeballing, penciling, and then cutting the popsicle sticks down to size. And I cut a bunch of them. I don't remember how many there are. And then I just do a rough painting with the rough painting. Does that make any sense? Not dry brushing, but just kind of sloppy painting these popsicle sticks. I didn't want full coverage is what I'm trying to get at. And then I'm just going to insert them inside the picture frame, kind of creating a bit of a shiplap look, leaving a tiny bit of a gap, and then securing it with some hot glue. Taking that antique wax and my stencil brush, I do a bit of dry brushing around the frame itself just to give it more of an aged look. I took one pack of the Dollar Tree sunflowers. They were already bundled together and I kind of liked the way they looked by themselves. Just kind of spread them out a little bit. Took some burlap, just wrapped it around the stem, and then attached it to the frame with some hot glue. Then I took this really cute ribbon from Hobby Lobby, did a simple bow, and just adjusted it the way I wanted it to, and then I hot glued that onto the burlap. And then pretty much this project was done. Next DIY was so super easy, and it was a Hobby Lobby dupe. So I took this crate that I had gotten for about $5 over at Walmart, and then I took some apple barrel paint in the color, I think it said Barn Red, and I just did one coat over this entire crate. I took a chunk of burlap and the burlap that I had was really wide, so I just kind of folded the two ends down, and I used some hot glue to secure it to the crate itself, and that worked out perfectly. And it was going for the look, or it was the look I was going for, so I was very happy with how this turned out. The only thing I ended up doing on the sides was I pulled a little bit of the threads to kind of give it that frayed look, and just kind of made it feel very farmhouse, fall, you know, just that beautiful look I was going for. And then Dollar Tree had these galvanized words, and this one is harvest. Then I had just attached that to the burlap with some hot glue. And with that same, I think that was the antique wax paint. Anyway, I just did a little bit of dry brushing over top of the burlap just to give that an aged look. And I was pretty happy with the way that one turned out. Then I just filled the crate with some Dollar Tree moss, and then I filled that up with some pumpkins that I had gotten from Dollar Tree, some floral, and a couple of pine cones, and I really love the way this one turned out. It was so beautiful. This next DIY, I used one of Dollar Tree's wreath forms, and I'm just going to remove the two middle rings that are in this wreath form because they're not going to be needed. So the only rings that I'm going to need is the very center one and the very outer one. Now, typically these will fall apart, and it's okay. You can attach this again with some hot glue. And to kind of reassure that it was going to stay together, I ended up just wrapping this entire thing with some nautical rope. Then I realized it was actually working better for me if I just kind of took it apart really quick, wrapped it around with the nautical rope, and then that way when I got to the part where it was broken, it just secured it in place and it was all good. So now, as you can see, I did the inner ring and the outer ring, and now I'm just going to be taking these dowel rods. Never mind the windmill that is off to the side there. Forget about that. We're not using it. I'm taking the dowel rods and I'm just scoring along with my scissors, and then I'm just going to go ahead and snap that right in half, and then give those little edges a good sanding. Once I have those sanded down, the next thing I do is I take these letters that I had picked up over at Hobby Lobby. These are very inexpensive, which was perfect. And they come two in a pack, but you only need one. Then I had picked up these Ninja Claws over at Dollar Tree, and you must be wondering, what in the world is she doing with that? So I'm just taking my box cutter and I am just taking these apart because these are going to become our directional arrows for a compass rose. So I'm just cutting these apart. It took a bit of effort, but I was able to get it done, and I had to keep cutting with some really good scissors. And I ended up I think I used 6 in total. You see 4 here, but I think I ended up using 6. So then I just go ahead and I paint my letters in white chocolate. I also go ahead and paint the dowel rods that you see here. Now there are only 4, but I end up using 8 in total. And then I go ahead and paint those ninja claws, or what is actually now our directional arrows. And I just go ahead and I give those a good painting too. Now for the center part of our compass rose, I have this wood round. Like I said, I am not going to use that windmill that you saw earlier. I decided that this wood round was going to work out so much better. So now I'm just attaching my directional arrows onto the wood round, and this is how all of that is holding on together. I feel like my hopes and dreams, but it actually does hold. So then I'm just adding some hot glue to my letters, and then I really felt that the inner and outer ring were only being held together by the N and the S. So of course I had to have my wood dowels, but I do go in with some more support with more wood dowels. Then I have this anchor that I picked up over at Walmart, and I use the Waverly chalk paint in Agave and Martha Stewart paint in Magellan. Magellan is like one of my favorite colors. Over the summer, it is just such a beautiful shade of blue. So I'm going in with the 2 different shades of blue and painting this this anchor, and I'm going to be hot gluing it on top of the wood round that's in the center. So like I said, I thought that this needed a little extra support, so I do cut down some more dowels, and that way that the inner and outer ring have a little something extra. So that's what you see me doing here, and after that, this project is finished. Oh, we are coming down to the home stretch, friends, and if you are still with me, y'all are rock stars. So I have these three signs from Dollar Tree, and the first thing I do is just remove the little images off the center, and these are so cute. Then I'm taking these jumbo popsicle sticks, and I'm going to be attaching these three signs together with the popsicle sticks. Now, this project really did give me an injury. Some hot glue had dripped on my finger, and it burnt so bad that it actually took some skin off. And you saw, I don't know if you saw the band-aid on my finger right there. Yeah, no fun. So then I'm taking my Truffle Paint by Waverly, and I give this whole thing one coat. Once that was completely dry, I'm going back in with the Rust-Oleum Chalk Paint Chiffon Cream. It's the same paint that I used for that armoire earlier. So what I'm doing here is that I'm just painting a section of this, and you want to make sure that your paint is still wet when you use this tool here in just a second. My husband had bought this new paint tool for me, and I love it. It helps you get wood grain on projects that don't naturally have wood grain. Now, a lot of you said that you've actually heard of this tool before. That is amazing. I love this thing so much. I've never heard of this before, but you just rock it back and forth, and this thing is so much fun to use. I love the way this project turned out. It is, this probably should have been higher up on my list of favorite DIYs of 2020. I don't know why I put it down as number 5, but it is most definitely one of my top 10 favorites. So then all I did was just take one of Dollar Tree's glitter deers, and I just attached it to my board with some hot glue, very nice and easy. And then I just go in with some greenery that I had on hand, and I hot glue that to his neck. And then I had some red jingle bells that I hot glue onto greenery, and this is actually done. And like I said, this should have been a little higher up on my favorites list. It is so hard to decide which one is my most favorite or least favorite. I mean, I had such a fun year doing all these DIYs. Like, it's really hard to put these things in order. This next DIY was done in the summer. Can you tell by my nails? So I'm just starting off with taking off the glitter, and then I'm going to go ahead and paint this in my white chalk paint, and I think I probably did about 2 coats on this. So once I had all that done, I'm just going to be making my shiplap lines, and I'm not really paying much attention on the spacing between my lines. You know, some spaces are a little further apart, some are a little bit closer. Really doesn't make a difference to me, but this project was inspired by something I had seen down at Galveston one time. I had taken my daughter and her friend to some shops down there, and I'd seen something that just really sparked an interest, so I thought maybe I could recreate it. So then I'm just going in with some different shades of blue. I can't remember the name of this one. Again, the description will be in the original video. So anyway, I'm just painting this part here, this shade of blue, and then I go in with some another color you'll see here in just a second. And then this shade of blue, which is absolutely beautiful. And then the last 2 spaces, I actually just leave white. So now I'm just taking my white chalk paint and just doing a little bit of distressing over top of the blue, and then I kind of soften up those brown lines too. So now going in with classic caramel, I'm also going to be doing some dry brushing with that. I start off with around the edges, and then I really go ahead and start pulling that color into the center. And then you'll see that I get really carried away with it, and I just really drag it all up and down my project. But it makes it look like, um, it just kind of made me think of like those houses, not the houses, but like I guess back in the day they had like those changing rooms like on the beach. It's kind of what it makes me think of. Are those like little stand up, like little mini buildings that they would have on the beach for people to change into their bathing suits or something. It kind of made me think of like something that like that you would see like back in the day, I guess. I don't know. The next thing I'm doing is I'm using the stencils from Dollar Tree, and I'm just filling out the words, "The beach fixes everything," doesn't it? So I think I'm using that same classic caramel to do my words, and actually I think the word "the," oh okay, this is a darker color for the words. But anyway, so for the word beaches, I'm actually freehanding that, and then I will go over that again with paint, and then I go back with stencils to write out the words "fixes everything." So you'll see it better than I can explain it. So now I'm just going in with some nautical rope and some hot glue, and I'm just going to hot glue the rope just around the edges. Once I get to the end and trim off the excess, I want to decorate it with a seashell. So I started off with that smaller one, but it was way too small, and I happened to have a bigger one, which was perfect. So just a little bit of hot glue on the top and the bottom, place it right there in the center top, and this project was done. This project here was a recent favorite of all of you, and I have to agree. I love this one. And I start off with two Dollar Tree crates, gluing them together. And remember how I reminded you, like, this isn't going to be another one of those, like, little planters where you just stuck two crates together and call it good. We're going to go a little bit further with that. So I'm just using my antique wax, and I paint it and then wipe off the excess with a paper towel, and I go over the entire crate just like that. So then I had the J and the Y from Hobby Lobby, and I'm going to go ahead and just paint the front of both of those letters in the crimson red paint, and I only needed to do one coat. It covered very nicely. Now what I forgot to show you was that I painted the edges of the letters in a gunmetal gray paint that I had, and that looked really beautiful. It gave a nice contrast and made the letters really stand out. So do you remember that windmill that I showed you when I was doing the compass rose? Well, that's the same windmill. I happen to have it in my stash. I know not everybody has it right now. It's okay. Spring is coming. Dollar Tree is actually getting all their spring stuff out, so keep your eye out. I'm sure it'll be coming back. So what I'm doing here is I'm just adding some Jenga blocks so that when I attach my letters, um, it's going to have something to just kind of lean up against. And so that's what I'm doing here. I'm just hot gluing my Jenga blocks into place, and then I'm going to hot glue the letters to the Jenga blocks. This project was a Kirkland's dupe, and Kirkland's had something very similar to this. This is beautiful, cost way more money than I was willing to spend, so I was really happy that I was able to do this for a heck of a lot less. So keep your eyes out, ladies, for those windmills and stock up. Now, this project was another favorite amongst all of you, and again, I have to agree, this project meant a lot to me. So what I ended up doing was I gave this about 2 coats of white chalk paint, and then I just took my ruler and I just wanted to create some shiplap lines following the same notches that are naturally in the sign itself, as you can see. So then once I am done doing that, I have this wooden angel that I picked up over at Walmart. Absolutely beautiful. And then I have these wooden bells that I had gotten from Dollar Tree. So I'm only going to use 2 of those. So the next thing I do is I take my metallic copper paint, I believe is the one that it is, and I just gave the bells 1 coat of that paint and then set it aside to dry. So then I am taking, I believe is the antique wax paint, and I'm just going over those lines that I made earlier. And as I'm doing the lines, I'm taking my stencil brush and kind of dry brushing, which kind of gives it a little bit of a smear, if you know what I mean. That way, before the paint even has a chance to dry, and you can kind of just soften those harsh lines. So then I'm just attaching my angel to my board, and I'm going to go ahead and attach the bells down. And I thought that the layering the bells on top of each other just like that was really beautiful. So then, because I still didn't have a Cricut or anything like that, I had to freehand this myself. Again, practice makes perfect with, having very nice handwriting. I'm not going to consider my handwriting at all perfect. I am still practicing, but I'm trying. So then once I had that down, I just went in with a brown Sharpie marker and just went over my my words that said, every time a bell rings, an angel gets its wings. So I finally got to see the original movie that had come from. Somebody had commented down below the original video that that saying came from that Christmas movie. What's it? It's a Wonderful Life. I think that's the one it was called. I finally got to see it this Christmas. I was so excited. I'm like, oh my God, that's the famous line. Oh, I was so happy to see it. So I have yet to see the movie through and through, but anyway. So now I'm just attaching some greenery and these little pine cones that I had with the bell, and this project was done and I love it. We made it. We are finally at the final DIY, friends. So happy. So I'm just taking this Easter sign that I had, and I gave this 2 coats of white chalk paint, and then I took I believe this was the antique wax paint, and I just did 1 coat on that. Now this was a Pinterest inspired DIY. I still have this in my living room, and I think this was one of my earlier videos in the year. This is about when I first started my channel, and I really love how this one turned out. So then the next thing I do is I'm making my shiplap lines, and I'm using a black Sharpie marker for this one. So now I'm taking one of those infamous windmills, and I'm just kind of disattaching it from its form, and I'm just going to, I want to hot glue it onto my board, but it doesn't sit flat. So I have to use 2 Jenga blocks underneath 2 of those windmill blades. That way it'll sit nice and flat. And so what I use is some super glue gel, or no, not the gel, just some regular super glue from Dollar Tree. And this is how this one turned out. You didn't see earlier that it says Country Living. I just hand did that one. That's it for today's video. I hope that you enjoyed it, and if you did, please give it a big thumbs up. Leave a comment down below and tell me which one of them was your favorite and was one of your favorites that I had done this year, not in this video. I would love to know. Thank you so much for being here. Again, love and appreciate each and every one of you, and y'all have a wonderful, blessed day. Bye.